Whether it's the adventure, the mystique, or just the view. Most private railcar owners will tell you they grew up dreaming of living on a train. For the Andrews family, that dream came true.
I had a pretty unique childhood. Not everyone lives in a train car. I think that's an advantage of just having those really special memories that no one else can have.
Caitlin Andrews first rode the rails before she could walk. Her family made their home on the Abraham Lincoln. And Caitlin was the baby on board.
I think it was about a year and a half, or a year around there, when I was real small.
This Andrews family heirloom is the oldest operational car in America. A magnificent rolling piece of American history. Perfectly restored by Caitlin's family. Elegant bedrooms, decked out with dark decorative wood. The special secretary room is still Morse code ready, with its own personal hidden nickel sink. Their home away from home is one of only a few national landmarks that is still on the move. The Abraham Lincoln first hit the rails in 1910 on the Denver-Rio Grande Railroad. Caitlin says it truly was part of the Wild West and was specially equipped with extra thick windows.
When the car was first built, it would go through Indian Territory, and so the windows had to be double paned in order to block the arrows from coming in from the Indians that were trying to attack the train.
Ironically, it was the romance of the Wild West that first attracted Caitlin's dad, Curtis, to buy the Abraham Lincoln in 1983.
I think when I was a young man, I watched Wild Wild West, and he always got the girl. So I thought, well, if I had a car, maybe I'll get the girl.
Curtis bought the car fresh out of college. His idea was to live on the car while rebuilding it.
I graduated with 2 degrees, one in logic and philosophy, and one in engineering. And the engineering side of me said, this would be a good challenge. The logic side said, this is not a good investment. The challenge overruled the logic, and I ended up buying it.
The Lincoln hadn't run since the 1960s and was not the beauty back then that it is today.
It was boarded up. It had not been used. They literally had plywood screwed to the outside. But there was enough light coming through the cracks that we could see the wood was intact and that the fabric was intact. It hadn't been painted, it hadn't been formiced, it hadn't been modernized, and just pretty much fell in love with it.
It was a rust bucket.
Despite the condition of the car, Clyde Andrews, Curtis's father, never questioned his son's decision. He just jumped on board and tried to help get the Abraham Lincoln back on track.
His mother might have thought the 2 of us were over the edge, but she participated in it, and we both supported him, and we thought he was a pretty special son.
I purchased the car as a home. So I brought it here and lived in it while I was doing the restoration as a single person. And it wasn't too bad, kind of camping, the windows would be gone one week and the bathroom not working the next, but it worked as a single person. I restored the car and then I got married.
And Curtis made sure his first love was also part of the ceremony.
The community knows me as the guy that owns the railroad car. And so when I got married, I had a wedding train. We got married in a church. And then when we left, after the wedding, we got on the train and the train pulled away and the barrels were bouncing along the track in the back as we left town.
And yep, Curtis's new bride agreed to live on board the Lincoln. At least for a while.
Unlike the Wild Wild West, where he always got the girl because he had the private car, that wasn't my case. She married me in spite of having this obsession with the private car. But she did agree to move on the car because we were building the house, and she knew she had the future of having her own house without wheels eventually.
Then Caitlin came along, a baby who was born to ride.
Her first word was train.
Caitlin doesn't remember everything about growing up on the train, but she still knows all the best places to hide.
There's a lot of places to hide, yeah. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of sleepovers and little parties and get-togethers out here.
To Caitlin, this is home.
We wanted all the conveniences of an ice maker, but we had to hide it behind this panel. And behind here, we have our modern refrigerator.
But to the rest of the world that's invited on board to take a tour of the Abraham Lincoln, it's a masterpiece, perfectly preserved. From those nickel-plated sinks to ornate fixtures, beautiful walls of deep, dark wood that date back to the early 1900s.
95% of it is the original wood from that time period. It's a old-growth American red gum wood that is irreplaceable today. When people do walk in the car, they just look at it and their eyes look and their mouth drops. And they don't know what to say because they are walking back 100 years.
This is where I grew up. This is my life.
The Andrews and the Abraham Lincoln are now a family portrait in American history and plan to stay that way for generations to come.
To be on a private railroad car lifts you to an elevation certainly above common. You're just not a regular person anymore. This is a world that would never be experienced if you didn't have a son that was a little off the rocker and bought a private railroad car.
That would just be weird to not have this in the family, just because I've grown up with it. I feel like there's always a project on here. That's always something we're working on. We're always coming out here. That's just how it is, and it's our life. And people know us as, oh, you guys have the railroad car. You have that Pullman car. Yep, that's my family.